It's 1:30, actually 1:32, so we're getting a little bit of a late start. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll for determination of the quorum?
Kim Toulouse,
Present.
Clay Thomas,
Present.
Christina Hill. Hello. Lee Lawrence.
Here.
And Brad Stanley.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We have a quorum. Mr. Thomas, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Edwards, ethics law announcement, please.
Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the board today, you have received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Board members are also reminded that under the Board of Adjustment rules, if you have had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the board today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Lloyd, if you could do the appeal procedure, please.
Thank you. Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. We'll move on to general public comment. This period is for the public to speak on any item on or off the agenda. Please be reminded that you have 3 minutes. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody for public comment at this time?
No, we don't.
Okay, we'll close the public comment at this period. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved, and do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the October 5th, 2017 draft minutes. So moved. Do we have a second? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. Move on to our public hearings. Before we get into our public hearings, do any members of the board have any disclosures to make regarding any of the items on the agenda today? Okay, thank you. Seeing no disclosures, we'll move on to item 8A, administrative permit case number WAD MIN 17-009, Crossley property, and we have a new planner with us today, Mr. Chris Bronzik. Welcome. And the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, before we get started, can I make one recommendation? And this is coming through our admin staff, as we have a relatively new person that will be taking and writing down all of the minutes. Is that each of you speak loudly into the microphone, please? And when possible, state your name as well. That makes it easier when we record the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Brunzik.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Chris Bronzik. We're looking at the first item on your agenda today, WADMIN 17-9, Crossley Garage. It's located at 401 Highway La Plata. Provided a vicinity map for you. Highlighting the property location. It's about a mile east of Pyramid Highway. The subject property is approximately 9.47 acres, and the applicant is proposing to construct a 4,000 square foot detached accessory structure. This proposal is significantly larger than the existing principal residence on the property. That residence is 1,700 square feet, and it does not include the existing garage. I've provided a adjacent zoning map for you. As you can see, all the surrounding properties are zoned general rural. However, the further west you go, the more diverse the zoning becomes. The applicant did provide us a hand-drawn site plan. We replicated it within a digital setting and approximated the building footprint and location with this digital rendering. The applicant also provided elevations to us upon submittal. So there's one thing to note. We did send it out to various reviewing agencies. One thing to note is that it is located within a 100-year FEMA floodplain, and the applicant will need to conform with Article 416. During the application period for this project, there was no Spanish Springs Citizen Advisory Board meeting. The application was distributed to all CAB members. No CAB members provided any comments to us, and there was no objections or comments provided to us from any adjacent neighbors. Proper notice was provided, and I provided a map highlighting all those notice areas. So these are the required findings. Staff was able to make all required findings, and you can view the staff analysis starting on page 10 of the staff report. We do recommend WAdmin 17-9 be recommended for approval with conditions, and a possible motion has been provided. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Brunzick. Does any member of the board have any questions? Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, I do. Lee Lawrence for the record here. Chris, I have a question. I don't know if it's for you or for the applicant, but I drive up and down Calladale Plata at least once a day, and I'm wondering if the applicant, maybe the applicant can help me if they're here. The amount of fill dirt that was brought in there, it's obvious, hundreds and hundreds of yards. If there was a permit filed for that importation or required thereof. And the second part of my question is, was there any site preparation, such as removal of the sagebrush and debris from the area to make that a proper building site for a structure for, I would say, a slab for this building? Do you know anything of that, or can the applicant help me with that?
So I'm unaware of any of that information.
Okay.
The applicant is present.
Okay.
Thank you. Come on up and step to the microphone and identify yourself, please.
Hi, my name is John Crossley, and I am husband of Sandra Crossley. And the questions that Mr. Lee Lawrence has, yes, all the sagebrush was all scrubbed and grubbed. Everything was moved, and as far as dirt permit, I was doing a bunch of road improvements and waterway. We had a lot of, if you can tell, we're on a FEMA flood area. A lot of water comes through there. It came through there so hot and heavy, it wiped out the road. A lot of that dirt also that I was moving out of there, I was staging it, I was screening it to make sure that I could use that for fill dirt. A lot of it came from the property, and yes, there was dirt that was brought in there also from other, dump trucks have dropped some, but there was not a dirt permit. If I need to go about and get a dirt permit, or if I need to have any of that taken a look at, I'm more than willing to comply with whatever I need to do on that.
I think my question, though, is did you apply for a permit to, as you say, grub the land and scrape it?
I wasn't aware that I needed a dirt permit to move the sagebrush as I was trying to improve my access to get the roadways to the property. Like I said, it wiped out Calalimpo Road, and all the 3 other property owners that were adjacent, they had to use my property. So I had to clear and scrub and move sagebrush as I could to get the drainage and to get access, so that way other people could use access also. But no, I did not get a permit. If I need to, I'm more than willing to.
And what's the area, the square footage of that area? It looks like it's maybe a third of an acre, am I guessing?
Yeah, approximately.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I don't know the square footage on that
I don't-
exactly,
I don't know either.
and what the county would require as far as that. My concern is, and it's really, my concern, Mr. Crosley, is for you, is the grubbing of the ground. I noticed when I drove by, sagebrush was just being covered with dirt near the road there, Caladale Plata. And I immediately recognized in my mind that that's going to be a problem for you down the road, because what's going to happen is the organic matter, the termites and the wood-destroying fungi and the decay organisms out there are going to eat all that stuff up, and it's going to settle. And if you have a slab on it, you're going to have issues with cracking and that sort of stuff.
I don't know if you had noticed in the area where the proposed location of the structure, all that with it was done with a D4, and all that was cleared out of the way. Some of the area that you're talking about, I had to stop some people pulled in. There's a gentleman up the road past my place that's been taking some fill dirt for some unknown reason. I have no idea, but people were just randomly pulling in my yard and dumping, and I had to put no trespassing signs. No dumping fill dirt, please call. And I had some serious conflict because, just like you had said, they were pulling in and dumping over some areas of sagebrush. I didn't like that also. I tried to get in there and turn some of that and move it and get it out of the way as much as possible, but the proposed site where I am at, I definitely, all that was cleared. There is no sagebrush that was backfilled or buried in any of that location or within at least 50 to 100 feet of that location.
In all honesty with you, I couldn't see that far into the property, nor did I pay attention. And I did see your no trespassing sign there the other day. And I do know that you have screened the material with the grizzly out there and your bobcat and all that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was pretty impressive. Actually, I've seen where they've dumped organic matter on the property. You've screened that clear too to keep that
Yes,
out.
and I did
So-
everything I could to try to make sure, because my concern is the same. I don't want any compaction issues. I don't want anything in the future issues.
Exactly. I mean, I think what you're doing is correct, because you are on that floodplain, and I am well aware of the water issues. As I say, I'm your neighbor up and around and away up there.
Okay.
And, you know, I recognize the issue of why you were doing that all along. It's just, you know, I was just curious if, and I don't know the permitting requirements. That's beyond my realm.
Mr. Lawrence, if I can break in quickly, and this is something staff will follow up on.
Okay.
And we will ensure that it is to code.
Okay.
But just for your edification, staff, we will require a grading permit for any grading that exceeds 10,000 square feet in size. We will also, if more than 50 cubic yards of dirt are excavated or imported, we also require a permit. So we will follow up on that.
Okay.
Okay, good. Just hoping that you don't have settling issues, that's all. Mr.
Yes,
Crowley.
and I appreciate your concern, and I have the same, I definitely don't want any issues like that too, also.
Okay, I have no problem with your project.
And with any other, I'm also here with the conditions of approval, with painting the structure, no reflective material, I'm on board. I'm totally willing to comply with that, and also with the flood elevation and whatever other stipulations I need to comply with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Anyone else have any questions for either our new planner or Mr. Crossley? Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will open this up for public comment. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this one?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion by board members? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. For the record, Clay Thomas. I'll make a motion. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions administrative permit case number WADMIN 17-0009 for Sandra Crosley, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code 110.808.25. That being 1, consistency, 2, improvements, 3, site suitability, 4, issuance not detrimental, and 5, effects on a military installation.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item B, 8B, variance case number WPVAR 17-0008 Jennings. And Ms. Olander.
Good afternoon, Board. Julie Olander with Planning and Building. The variance you have before you is for a property in the Incline Village area. It's at 423 Fairview Boulevard, sorry. All right. Is it not? I'm not moving.
Are we ready?
We're just not moving. There's no movement here. And my little clicker's not. Let's go.
Sometimes we have little technical glitches.
What do you think? Do you want to just do it yourself? Can you just control it there from there, Donna?
Also known as gremlins.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
I don't know, let me just see if yeah, okay, now it's okay. All right. So this variance is a request to reduce the front and side yard, the front from 20 feet to 2 feet, and the side from 5 to 3, to construct a garage and an entryway. The subject property is zoned MDS, medium density suburban, which requires 20 front foot and rear and an 8-foot setback. An 8-foot side setback, 8-foot yard setback. The property is approximately 3,550 square feet and was built in 1973. Oops. There have been 2 previous variances for this application, one in 1986 and one in 1993. Both variances were approved. However, they never moved forward with those variances, and they did expire. The properties to the south, north, and west are also zoned MDS, and some of them have similar garages like the one being proposed. The property across the street is zoned General Rural, GR, and is part of the U.S. Forest Service land. The variance would, oops, I'm going too fast. The variance would allow for the construction of a new 2-car garage and an enclosed entryway. There is an existing driveway that does access a garage, but the driveway is at about a 16% slope. Code only permits a 14% slope, and the applicant has indicated that during the winter months it is difficult to keep this driveway clear of snow and ice. The construction of the garage would also provide 2 additional parking places between the garage and the street. Here's a picture of the parking deck and also of Fairview Boulevard. And you can see that, well, you can't see but the next property up, basically, several properties up have the same kind of parking deck, and then some of them have garages off of them. This is a picture of the driveway, and there's a stairway going down to that driveway from the parking deck. Currently, that's the only way you can access from the parking deck to that driveway. There's no inside stairway, and that's one of the proposals that they would, that's one of the part of the entry proposal that they're wanting to do. And here's a picture of the deck and the residence to the left, the garage, the parking deck, and a little bit of the stairway. And this is basically the layout of what they want to do. I have sort of shown where the new garage is proposed to go, the entry, that's also including an inside stairway, where the parking deck is currently, also the driveway and the residence. Oops. This is the elevation of the proposed garage from different angles, different directions. In reviewing this site, it was realized that the slope is quite steep there. The proposed garage would not block neighboring views. The current garage is off a steep driveway, which is difficult to keep clear during the winter months. Neighboring properties also have similar garages, and the garage isn't allowed use for this zoning classification. The Incline Village Crystal Bay Citizen Advisory Board did not meet during the time of the review period. We did receive comments from 2 CAB members, one in favor of the garage, citing the previous approvals that had been for that garage, and one concerned about the guest parking. And as I stated earlier, there will be parking between the proposed garage and the street. That would be off. It would be off the street on the parking deck. No other comments were received. So out of the 13 reviewing agencies, 2 provided comments. That would be planning and building and engineering. And those comments are provided and included in the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. Staff has provided also analysis, which starts on page 12 of your staff report, and staff was able to make the required findings. And staff would recommend approval of this variance and has provided a possible motion. And I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also here.
Thank you, Ms. Olander. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, Ms. Olander, Lee Lawrence for the record. Simple, and maybe it was in this somewhere and I didn't see it. It's kind of hard to see the map sometimes. But what is the distance from the garage door to the curb?
So the garage, I think it's about 16 and a half feet. So there was concern, I'll go back. That one picture. So you can sort of see where the property line is. So there was concern about the parking deck and the stairway being in the public right-of-way. However, and so one of the conditions is that staff is requiring is that they have the property surveyed and they obtain an encroachment permit, which would allow them to have both the parking deck and the stairway in the public right-of-way. In talking with engineering, because of the slopes that are up there, this is not unusual for this area where these kind of things are existing, be it the parking deck or the stairway.
So it's from the proposed structure, from the garage door to the curb is 16 and a half feet.
Approximately.
Okay.
Yeah, to the curb,
Right.
so
okay.
to the curb.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Christina Hill, for the record. I'm wondering what is going to happen to the garage that is existing?
So the garage that's existing is underneath the parking deck. Did you see that?
Right?
Yeah, there. So that garage will remain, and then there will be a garage built above that garage. So they'll basically have 2 garages, but as I said earlier, that garage can be difficult to access during the winter months.
Okay, so that driveway and all that, the
Yeah.
stairway and everything is going to stay the same?
Everything's staying the same. The only thing different is where that van is, you'll see a garage. And
Right.
then also an entryway that will be off that garage that'll go down through stairway down into the house. It'll have an enclosed entryway to the house. So currently, they have to walk out from the parking deck, down those stairs into
Right,
the house,
right,
so.
right. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Stanley?
Yes, Brad Stanley for the record. Planner Olander, a question I think you've probably answered-ish, but could you speak a little bit more to the concern that one of the cab folks had about visitor parking and how that's provided for? Again, please.
Let me go back one more. So what the applicant's stating is where the garage will be placed, there will be parking on that parking deck for 2 more vehicles. So that'll be off the street. So right now, you could probably park approximately 4 vehicles, 2 where that van is and another one behind it. And that's what they're providing, is they're going to provide that parking off there will still be parking on the parking deck. That won't be inside the in garage. And then there probably is still some parking in that driveway. It's hard to see in the photo, but it is not as steep at the beginning of it. It really sort of gets steeper as it drops down. So they could possibly park down there too. So looking at the other properties in that area, they probably have more parking than a lot of the other properties do, even now.
If I could break in also, just a moment. Code requires 2 parking spaces, one indoor, one outdoor, basically.
So it sounds like that's well covered.
Yeah, they're gonna have, this is primarily to provide, enclosed that it's accessible from the street and not down this driveway, which I'm sure can be a bit of a challenge in the winter months.
And then, if you don't mind, 2 follow-on questions. One is, to what extent, if any, did the earlier decisions or the earlier provisions for a variance in the 90s, I guess, inform this, or any changes in code, or was that just general background for consumption by the board?
I don't believe, in the little I reviewed them, they didn't, it doesn't seem like there's been that much change. It was just that there was change of ownership on each one of the variances that were approved previously. They were approved under different owners. And for whatever reason, I don't know if they sold the property before they moved forward building the garage or exactly what happened, but they were done by different owners, and this is a different owner than the previous 2.
Okay.
Mr. Stanley?
And I think my last question is, you'd mentioned changes of ownership and so forth. The easement on the public right-of-way, how does that work? Can you talk a little bit about that? Does that travel with the land? In other words, if a new buyer, that easement will still be in place and so forth?
So when they come in and apply for the encroachment permit, that's through our engineering department. And my understanding is that does stay with the land. That encroachment permit is part of that property and not so much with the property owner.
And it is required to be recorded, so yes,
Yeah.
it does stick with the property.
With. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Clay Thomas. Julie, help me understand here. If as I look at the pictures in that, there's an underground actual parking garage, and that's 2-car?
I would ask the applicant, but I think it probably could provide 2 cars, yes. It'd be a little, the house was built in 1973, so you have to understand the garage was built in 1973, and cars are smaller than, for whatever reason.
Okay, so possibly 2, minimum, at least 1, okay. And above that, on the parking deck, you can park 1 or 2 cars there?
Probably 4. So if we go back to that other picture. Oops. There, the van is not pulled all the way forward. So my understanding is that the garage will be built in such a way that it'll house that type of that van, and it'll house another vehicle. So it'll be a 2-car garage, and then on the apron area, it's a long apron, they would be able to park 2 more vehicles there.
And the garage that will be added will actually be the footprint of the parking deck?
It'll be a portion of the parking deck, yes.
Will it be bigger than the parking deck?
No, they aren't planning to, let me go back. Oops. Sorry. There. Oh, I knew I was going to. So you can sort of see where the parking deck is currently. It's labeled parking deck, and that's in the public right-of-way. And then it continues on to where the new garage is. So the parking deck is in the right-of-way, and like I said earlier, also the stairway. So that will remain. That's not going to change.
And I guess, pardon me if I'm just not grasping this yet, but if we're going to drop a structure on top of the parking deck that already exists, why are we asking for a variance to move that? Is not the deck itself basically the footprint that they're going to use?
Yes, but right now, currently, the property zoned MDS requires a 20-foot setback. So you'd be 20 feet back from that property line. and they're asking for to vary that to 2 feet. So then the garage is going to be only 2 feet from the property line. So that's what they're asking for, and then they're also asking for the side variance, the variance on the side too.
And it will match the footprint of the parking deck.
Right.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any other questions for Ms. Olander? Is the applicant present? Do they wish to speak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. My name is Nick Exline. I have a presentation. If the technology gods are with us today, if not, I'm just happy to talk to you guys. Based on Ms. Oleander's wonderful presentation, I'll try not to be repetitive in deference to your time, but just really focus on a couple of key points. I think that, you know, as we talked about, Ms. Oleander outlined what the variance entails. It is very important, I agree to your question. We're not expanding the footprint of the parking deck whatsoever. The variance is required, so the structure is already there. We're just going up with it, and that's what required us to go through the variance process. But fundamentally, this project is really about health and safety. You know, everyone understands the Tahoe winters, especially the winter we had last year, which was a fantastic winter, and I'm hoping for more of that snow soon. But there's two things, the health and safety component of this project, in addition, just the maintaining of the community character and all the residences that are abutting Fairview now. So right now, this is an important slide. Ms. Oleander references as well, but just to get a visual of this, and then as we look at some of the surrounding properties. So as we already know, there's a steep slope. It can be steep slope for the parcel and the driveway, which can be difficult to access in the winter. So fundamentally right now, if you were to pull up to the site and you were going to visit the Jennings this winter, you would park on the parking deck. And you would have access either via the stairs on the left or the driveway on the right. And so I'll leave it to you, but on icy, snowy conditions, if you want to walk down a 16% driveway, or if you want to walk down steep slopes, I'll leave it to you. But it can be very challenging. And granted, we're not relying our approval on what took place in 1986 or 1993, but I think it is, you know, history is important in this matter. And so the fact that in 86 and in 93, the BOA was able to make the finding that, yeah, this driveway is steep and is hazardous in winter months as a result of snow and ice, I think is fundamentally important. Again, here's just some info about those past approvals. I'll move past that. Again, this is mainly to just document the existing character along Fairview. If you don't go on that road very often, because of the Forest Service being on the uphill portion, all residential development primarily is on the lake side of Fairview. And as a result of the 40+ degree slopes you see on those parcels, what you see and what the applicants are proposing is common with most residences along Fairview. You have your bridge driveway to a garage, and that garage is attached to the residence. Important to note, the existing garage is not attached, so no matter what, you have to navigate the outsides. Again, with snow and icy conditions, not terribly advantageous. Forest Service land to the rear, which is wonderful, beautiful Forest Service land. But the important point here is just the development of the garage is going to impact nobody's views. So it's going to have no negative impact on anybody's views or the surrounding community. In fact, it's going to be bringing the existing residence and the garage more into the character of the neighborhood than it currently exists. And so we are fully supportive of the motion as proposed and with all conditions recommended within the staff report. Just quickly, we and Ms. Oleander did touch on this, the parking situation on street versus on site will be substantially improved because, as we've said now, fundamentally all parking will be able to be provided on site where traditionally some might have been on the street. So we believe that satisfied the cab members' question as well. So I'm available if you have any questions, and the property owners are here as well.
Thank you. Any members have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no questions, Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this one?
We have no request for public comment.
Thank you. Seeing no public comment, we'll close the public comments period and bring it back to the board. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, the chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion?
Mr. Lawrence.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve variance case number WPVAR 17-0008 with the conditions included as Exhibit A for this matter for Michael and Corinne Jennings, having made all 4 of the following findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.804.25, those being for special circumstances, no detriment, no special privileges, and use authorized.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, chair and future and board items. Future board items. Anyone have any future board items they would like to see? Mr. Lloyd, do you have any future board items?
Not at present, I do not.
Perfect. Thank you. Any requests for further information from staff? Seeing none, I'd like to say, Mr. Lloyd, I do like the new format on the staff reports. You know, in my, seems like many years now doing this, I've seen a number of different formats, and this one I think is really good. Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're still working out the kinks, so.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, did you have a, okay.
No.
Seeing no further items there, item 10, Director and Legal Counsel's items. Any report on previous Board of Adjustment items, Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you. You may remember we had several items that appeared before you within the last several months. I'll start with the Gail Willie landscaping operation that was denied unanimously by this board. That was taken last week to the County Commission, where they upheld the decision of the board unanimously. So it was also denied at the County Commission. The other item you may remember was an appeal of a staff decision to deny a private communication radio tower. That item has been appealed, and the applicant has requested that it be continued, so it will be heard by the Board of County Commission at their January 9th meeting. That's the only 2 items that I have to report on at this time.
Mr. Lloyd, just a point of clarification on the Gail Willie application. I believe that the board actually did a partial approval.
Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
And correct. You are correct, as this board also made a partial approval. However, the appeal was for a complete allowance of all of the requested uses, and that appeal was denied. So the board still unanimously approved that partial, or upheld the decision of the Board of Adjustment to include the wholesale nursery only.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Madam Secretary, do we have any requests for public comment at this point?
Mr. Chair, we skipped 10B.
Did I gloss right over that, Mr. Edwards? Thank
did,
you.
But the good news is I don't have anything for item 10B.
Thanks for the reminder, though. I appreciate that. You know, I just want to get in the groove there, you know? So.
I do have an item for 10B also, and it's just a reminder. You may have received an invitation to the Community Services Department, the holiday feast, and hopefully you all received that. We will be having this feast on December 20th, and just wanted to remind you, you're all invited. Happens at...
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. General public comment. Do we have any requests for public comment at this point, Madam Secretary?
Yes, we do. Kathy Brandhorst.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. I just wanted to tell you there's been lockouts where I live right now. The problem was that they were all evicted from my area. And bringing back their machine guns, they had to shoot us down in order to steal our homes. Oh my. That's my body laying in the yard. But somebody put me back together, and I was back inside my home, which is a small apartment. Oh my. And I just wanted to let you know that the person who is renting number 2, his face was blown off with the shotgun. Oh my God. And also, they took out the electric chainsaw and sawed off his legs just to steal his apartment. Oh my God. So I just wanted to tell you there's going to be a lot more lockouts on that property where they cannot be stealing our homes anymore. And there will be a lot more evictions on that property because they do not live there. And they cannot be stealing somebody's home because they are homeless. The people who do not live there are the homeless people. And I just wanted to tell you, stealing other people's houses is against the law. He's already had several bullet holes in his body because they need to steal his house. He's just a little boy, too, of 6 years old. And I am sick and tired of all the bloodshed on that property where I live right now. It needs to be stopped. And yes, the lockouts will help a little bit, you know, to keep them off the properties. And I just wanted to tell you, too, you know, the person who is going to be moving up on the 2nd floor of that apartment, he had his face blown off because those people that live there now needed a place to live for nothing. Oh, my God. And they are still there up there, but they will be locked out very soon because they don't live there at all. And by blowing the person's face off that does live there, he's been suffering enough. That's the one I'm talking about. He had bullet holes in his body because he decided to go back home to his house. Oh, my God. And I just wanted to tell you again that the lockouts will be continuing on the property.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone else for?
No further public comment.
Seeing no further public comment, we stand adjourned. Have happy holiday season. We will see you in February.